I had a question from one of my subscribers. How do I like my MaxJack lift? And I decided I'd do a review on it. I'm talking to you, Bronson.
You're watching On the Mark with Mark.
So this is not just a first impression review on the MaxJack. I've had this thing for about 3 years now. So I know exactly how it works and what it does and what it can't do. So I actually am very happy with this thing. It's a little scary when you buy the 2-post lift because you gotta drill holes in your concrete floor. And I was very hesitant about that, and I didn't like the idea to begin with, but once you bite the bullet and start drilling those holes and you get the thing installed, there's no looking back. I have no regrets at all for doing that. So now I do have, there's 5 holes here and there's 5 holes on the other side of the car over there where the other lift is. I have this side taken out right now. That's another neat thing about this lift. It's not a thing that gets mounted in your garage and then has to stay put. It is very easy to just unbolt it from the floor and then you can move it out of the way. The hoses for it, there's a quick release on the thing that allows you to disconnect the hoses, and then the actual power unit is on its own 2-wheeler, so you can move that off to the side. So if I wasn't using this for a long period of time, I probably would leave the one on the wall side of the garage. I'd probably leave it there because I really wouldn't be able to move it back very far, but if I really wanted to, I could. But anyway, this one I have taken out and put back in several times as I've been working on the Corvette here. So I'm going to put it back in now so you can see just how easy it is to install and uninstall this thing. I wrote right on my garage floor how many spacers I needed in each one of these holes to get this thing so that it is perfectly plumb. That is very important so that when the car's going up and down, maybe the posts aren't like spreading apart or doing something goofy that could cause it to slide off of the pads. So that's what I have right here. I've already taken my air hose and I've blown out these holes again because you know they're gonna get filled with sand and other bits of grit around the shop. So I got them nice and clean right now. Now, of course, this thing is not light, but it is manageable. And it's got 2 wheels down here on the back side that makes it operate a little bit like a 2-wheeler. And this is the bar that acts as the locking mechanism for the different heights that you can bring the lift up to. But in the moving position, you put it up here in the top and get your foot on the bottom of it, and then you lean it back, and now it's not light, but it is manageable. So I'm bringing it right in here, and I can eyeball right down those holes, and I can set it down just exactly where it needs to be. There we go. Okay, now that I got those good and tight, I'll double check that I'm plumb here. The power unit for this thing comes on its own little 2-wheeler here, so you can move it around. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 90 pounds. That's full of the oil too. And they provided these nice hooks on the back so you could coil your hydraulic lines on there. But these hydraulic lines are so stiff, I mean, they're just kind of hard to manage. So that's one thing I kind of don't like about it. It's hard to complain about hydraulic lines that don't leak. These don't leak. I've heard that some people have had trouble with the couplers, and I haven't had any troubles with mine at all, other than, I don't know if there's a higher quality hose that's a little more flexible than this or not. But anyway, that's what I deal with, and if that's the biggest problem, that's not too bad. We're good. Mine came wired for 110 volts, so that's real easy. I just plug it into the nearest outlet and we're ready to go. Now I just need to line up my pads. This jack came with some extra posts here. You can put this in here and then you get a little more height. If I was going to bring my pickup in, I would put those in so that I can lift it a little bit higher, because you've got to come so far just to meet the frame. The minor issue that I had with this jack was the powder coat on the inside of this hole was so thick that these did not fit in there. You can see they fit fine now, and in fact, it is a very good close tolerance fit. I really like it, but what I had to do is I had to get in there with a drum sander and go around and sand off all that paint that was inside of there to get those to go back on. So I don't know, I guess that's a quality control issue, but it was pretty easy for me to remedy. As heavy as this thing is, you'd never want to send it back to the factory for something as minor as that. And I did talk to the people at Max Jack, and they were very helpful and actually did me right with a little extra product. I wouldn't go around asking for that, but that's what they did for me. These slide in and out, and there's a locking bolt right here, so I can pull them in as I slide underneath the car, and then I'll push them back out again. This has this radial rack here, and then there's this locking piece here, and you lift that up, and then when you turn it out, then you let her drop back down in there. Now that keeps these from trying to swing out maybe while you're lifting, which would be a big problem. So the other thing you got here is when you're in the storage mode and moving these around, you can pull this pin right here, and then these come completely off. Now, the way I was wheeling it around before, that was with the arms on. So that makes it quite a bit heavier. So if you really were gonna, I don't know, move it a long distance or something, or let's say you wanted to move it to another garage, maybe a friend of yours was willing to drill holes in his floor, then you could do that and you could loan it to somebody and you could get this in a truck pretty easily. But of course, I mostly leave them on. They're not light. There we go. And we'll get that under the car like that. If you look at where my jack landed, where I needed it to be, it's right on the corner of this piece of concrete. And there's some pretty major control joints that have been cut into this slab here. And I was kind of worried about that because I didn't pour this slab, so I really don't know much about it. Does it have steel in it? I don't know. What weight is it? Is this 3,000 PSI concrete? Probably. That's pretty standard in the industry for a garage floor. And how thick is it? Max Jack requires a 3-inch thick of 3,000 PSI concrete, steel reinforced. I don't know. So I just took a chance, hoping that it is 3,000 PSI. And like I said, I've had this for 3 years now. And what my belief is that if there's a problem, a crack would show up first. And if that crack ever showed up, which I don't see any signs of a crack, Then I would get in here with a saw and I'd cut out probably a 3-foot square area and pour in probably a 12-inch thick piece with some steel in it, and I would run some rebars into the sides of the existing concrete and pour a new slab, probably lay the anchor bolts in the concrete rather than drill them afterwards. That's another thing. This hole size for the threaded inserts that they give you was an odd size, and I'll look it up. It's if I can find my paperwork on this thing. But I went to rent a large hammer drill at Menards, and I almost had it. And then I said, well, what size drill bits do we have? And they did not have the size that I needed. And it was something goofy like 11/16. And so what I ended up doing was I went and bought an 11/16 drill bit for a regular home hammer drill. And I came home and I started drilling holes with that. And I completely fried one of my drills, a hammer drill that I had. I'm trying to remember what brand it was. But anyway, I've never seen a drill fail like this before. I mean, it almost caught on fire. I mean, it was just a continuous smoking and crackling and all that. It completely died. But luckily, I had 2 hammer drills. So I continued on with my other one, which actually was a cheaper hammer drill. And then a friend of mine showed up with a Porter Cable hammer drill, and we ended up finishing the job with that one. So it did cost me 1 hammer drill to get these holes in, but it was really odd that they made it that funny 16th size. I'll assume I put the correct diameters on the screen there if I found those. Okay, I've got all my pads set up, and she's ready to go up. I don't know if I got it balanced very good. Let's see how it goes. Feels good? Hold the phone. Do you see it? My hood is up. That hood is probably the thing that makes me most nervous about this jack. And I actually did it one time. But fortunately, the hood was in between a couple of rafters and it just started lifting some things that are laying up there. And I heard that sound and I stopped right away and lowered it down a little bit and put the hood down. So that's a thing to watch out for with this low ceiling garage. This garage is probably 8'4". And, you know, Corvette is pretty low. You'll see when I get this all the way up, there's still plenty of room, but not with the hood up. Okay, so that brings it up. Now, I don't know if this one is any slower or faster than other lifts. This is the only lift I've really worked with, but if it is a little bit slower, that's not going to be something that really is affecting any length of time that I'm getting something done. As long as it gets it off of the ground, that's good. Also, you may have noticed it's not doing that click, 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 click. It doesn't have those stops that a lot of lifts, especially the 4-post lifts, have as things go up. It has a very simple locking mechanism. Let's take a look at it. Remember that bar I was saying you use to two-wheel the thing around? It's the storage location is up here for it. But then, once you get it up to the height you want, you bring it down, and it's kind of hard to see a black hole on this black paint, but it's right there. You feed the rod in here like that. Simple. It's nothing but a steel rod. That's all it is. So, sometimes, well, not sometimes, I like it when something is simple like that. Now I can see that is locked. I'll get the one on the other side, and then we'll let her down. Now it's actually resting in shear on this rod on both sides. The hydraulic pressure is not what's holding it up. So I can disconnect that hose now, and I can move that out of the way because I'm going to be setting up my garage for winter storage, so everything's going to kind of get really just crammed in here. And I wanted the Corvette up in the air so that I can put stuff underneath of it. So I used to have a Miata, and the Miata would fit mostly underneath of this car. So if you're looking for that double lift thing, you gotta have the right car for underneath. But I think I have a picture of it. I'll throw a picture of it in right here. It got most of the way in, but it got in far enough that I could get the door shut. So that worked out pretty well for me. If a guy was really ambitious and for some reason this wasn't the right height for him, there's actually 2 sets of holes here. There's one here and one down here. I had it in the lower position, which works out pretty good. With a step stool, you can reach over into the engine compartment pretty easily, but you can still get underneath of it pretty good too. That was really handy while I was removing and installing my steering column, because you needed to get in from underneath, but you still needed to get in from the top, so that was a good height. But if a guy really wanted to, you could probably drill some more holes in this, in the sidewalls of this, and add some other positions in here. I think 2 are just fine. I'm not going to bother doing that with mine. The other thing that I have here, I'm going to show you a creeper that I've got. I'm on this little bitty, it's kind of a squatting creeper. So I can get under here with this, and I'm ducking a little bit, but I can still get in here and work, and it's a hell of a lot better than laying on your back. But this allows me to move around pretty easily, and it has a little tray here. I'll put a link to this in the description. This is not a sponsored thing. If you get one, they're pretty pricey. Believe it or not, I got mine for 20 bucks at a swap meet, so I was pretty happy about that. But this has really been invaluable. There's also a little kind of a seated creeper that I have that I sometimes bring out too if I've got a helper with me underneath here. But this thing is really the ticket for this lift. I would pair these together. If you're going to get one, consider getting one of these. It sure is a lot easier on the knees, and you saw how I was able to just move around underneath of there. And of course the thing is, you're always in for a tool back underneath of there. You need something else, you're out from underneath of there, at least in a one-man shop like mine. So this little kneeling creeper is really a cool deal. The Max Jack. I love this thing. All you gotta do is get over the fact that you gotta drill holes in your garage floor and you're golden. If you liked this review, hit that like button. Consider subscribing. I'm working on my Corvette still, so that's been the ongoing project. It seems that watching the video to the end is really what helps the algorithm, so if you're still with me now, I really appreciate it that you stayed till the end. Also, I've got some pictures of when I got the jack, how it came packaged, how I unloaded it, and that sort of stuff. So while you're subscribing, you can watch these pictures, maybe enjoy some music too. Thank you. Good, good, good.